What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Cheese Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Rego, and tonight I'm joined by a good friend of the show, Mr. Brian Dudek. He is a Lions fan, and tonight we'll be talking about not last weekend, but the weekend before, the Packers against the Lions. I know us Packer fans, that might trigger PTSD in us, but, sometimes it's better off to talk about your feelings versus letting it build up. Right, Brian?
Right.
So, what were your thoughts going into the game against the Packers at Lambeau, knowing the weather was going to, maybe be kind of shoddy throughout the game?
I was kind of worried about the game with Detroit playing in a dome, and it being their first outdoor game. I wasn't sure how well they'd be able to handle the conditions. The two biggest things I was wondering is if Jordan Love was going to play in that game or not with his injury, or if Green Bay was going to maybe sit him and let him try to heal up some more.
Yeah, I don't, I still go back and forth on that because with his injury and with his knee that he had earlier in the year, it was a perfect weather game to where if he slipped the wrong way and he could have tweaked his knee, which could have tweaked his groin. So I was kind of cautious on that, but I think what played a big part into that is, obviously they don't want to throw him out there knowing he's going to get hurt, but knowing that after that game they had a bye week to rest people up as well. So I think that was kind of maybe thought about, but regardless, he didn't have much of a impact
No.
in the overall game. But
Yeah.
What I miss in Green Bay, Josh Jacobs is a good running back, but Montgomery and Gibbs is an amazing 1-2 punch. Montgomery never ran that hard in Chicago.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Gibbs and Montgomery as your running backs, and probably the running backs for the foreseeable future, unless one decides to take the money and run somewhere else?
I like them both. I mean, this is probably first time since well, we have Barry Sanders, but I mean, he didn't have anyone behind him. But Montgomery Gibbs, they're a good combination because Montgomery's kind of just a straight ahead. He's just going to bulldoze right through you, try to pick up those yards, and then Gibbs is your finesse guy. He'll get to the outside, and the speed he has. If he gets by you and he gets in that secondary, look out.
Yeah, it showed in that one play. He just hit the hole, and Packers defense didn't have time to react to him hitting that hole, and he scored it right into the end zone. It's just like there's nothing you can do. You could be the biggest guy in the field, but you're going up against somebody that quick. Sometimes the speed is just going to knock you right over, no matter how big you are.
Yeah.
Thoughts on Jared Goff? Do you think he has the right to be up in the MVP talks?
I thought he did up until that game against the Texans on Sunday. He kind of hit an off game. It was an odd game though. Like the first two interceptions, they were passes that got tipped, and the defenders made good plays. One he threw up as a Hail Mary. but then a couple of the other ones, and like some of his passes, like he didn't look comfortable back there the first two quarters. Like he was throwing some really odd passes that weren't getting anywhere near the receivers. They were just coming up short and everything. I don't know if he had an injury or something or
Yeah, it was kind of weird. It's like you you think of going into that game against Texans. I actually watched quite a bit of that game, and it was just like all of a sudden it's just like C.J. Stroud throws an interception, and Goff's like, "Here, hold my beer. I'll throw a pick." Then Stroud's like, "Okay, here, hold two of my beers. I'll throw." And they kept going back and forth, and eventually Detroit was a game winning field goal, right?
right. Yeah,
It's isn't it crazy how many games come down to a game winning field goal?
yeah. It is. I
I mean,
mean,
you think about, last year we had Anders Carlson, and he missed some field goals for us. We missed that field goal against San Fran last year in the playoffs. So we had like the whole off season to stew on it. Well, if he would have made it, Packers, whatever. Well, if Darnell Savage would have had a pick six against Brock Purdy in the same game, that would have been a touchdown. Obviously, we would have made it further. And then this last off season, we're going with them, and then we pick up this kicker, and then we release him, and get another kicker, and release him, and all of a sudden we bring in this guy after we bring him in, McManus. In his first two games for the Packers, he has game-winning field goals. The one thing that has hurt the Packers for how many years without Mason Crosby, we actually have this kicker wins us two games, which I think was kind of amazing, considering all the issues we've had with kickers the last year and a half or so. But um, you never know. Carlson went to the Niners, and one game he was 5 for 5 for field goals, but he missed extra point, and he ended up getting cut. Now he's on the Jets practice squad. So it's just a crazy game how quick you can move around. I mean,
yeah. It is. I mean, if one team doesn't want you, another team's gonna find you and pick you up.
yeah. When do you think Jamison Williams is going to be a bona fide receiver for the Lions? I liked him when he was in college, so I'll admit that I did like Jamison Williams. I mean, he had a hell of a highlight reel in college.
Yeah, I think this year he's finally starting to break out some. He just needs to focus on football and not do any of this stupid stuff that gets him suspensions. Because I mean, the first game against the Rams, he had that 52-yard touchdown, and he's had some other big plays like. Against Seattle, he had one like it was just kind of a crossing pattern. He caught it and he took it for like 40, 50 yards for a touchdown. So I mean, he's starting to show that he can be their big play guy. Be the guy that they go to deep to try and open up the underneath stuff for St. Brown, Laporta. He just for him he needs to be able to play every game and
Yeah, he's got to. I think they got to tighten up on his
yeah.
off the field demeanor, because what were they saying that he got pulled over and he had a gun on him that was registered to him, but he didn't have a concealed carry permit. Is that correct?
I know he got pulled over and he had a gun on him. I'm not sure about all of the specifics with it as to whether or not it was concealed or if it was out in the open at the time.
I mean, the thing is, nowadays, I mean,
It's
if you channel the proper steps to do that stuff, that's fine. But you got to think about whatever. It's um
right.
if
Yeah. No.
if yeah, that's stuff that the NFL needs to deal with, apparently, or obviously. I mean, what are your this kind of off topic, but what are your thoughts on Tua playing for the Dolphins? And how he's so concussion prone and he's still diving head first when he's running the ball. And
They need to teach him how to slide with his feet first. Because if he gets one or two more concussions, he's going to be out of the league. I think with as many concussions as he's had, one good hit, and I mean he might have to retire.
I the last two episodes I've had of my podcast here, I've questioned my guest. Like I've been thinking about this, and it just you know um that hit by Brian Branch. People are saying whatever about it, but I mean, I don't know, like the initial flag. I don't know what if he said something after the fact that got him ejected, or if New York called into the game and said, "Hey, get him out of there." But these guys coming into the league, especially with like the last 5 years, when there's been such an emphasis in college for targeting, and once you hit helmet to helmet, I mean, clearly Branch lowered his shoulder, put his head down. I mean, he knew what he was doing. I mean,
Yeah,
in college, you get ejected for it. So, what would make the next step higher warrant a non ejection? You know what I'm saying? Why? I mean, these penalties need these like helmet to helmet. If it's malicious, I think the helmet to helmet needs to be an automatic ejection, a huge fine, teach them a lesson so they don't do it again.
yeah.
Because look 15, 20 years after the career. Look at Junior Seau. Look what happened to him. Look at all these other old players from the 70s and the 80s that are they're vegetables. I mean, look at them. They're walking. Look at Brett Favre. Does he have Parkinson's partly due to taking so many hits? It's a possibility. What are your thoughts on the helmet to helmet?
Yeah. I was gonna. The league needs crack down on them because they keep saying they want to make the game safer for everyone, but sometimes they'll let certain hits go and stuff, and that looks pretty violent or malicious, and like in the NFL, there's like no consistency with these calls.
There's not at all.
Yeah, yep. I guess on the branch play is New York called in and said that to throw him out because it was. I guess that they're gonna say it was targeting because he led with his helmet. That's my understanding. Is New York called and said to throw him out?
Okay. And the thing too with that, Brian, is okay. So, I mean, I get it. We're if you're in the NFL, obviously you're an adult. We're all adults. If okay, so say you or I did something at work to where we got walked out of our job for something that we did, right? And you're sitting there, you're walking out, and you're giving the double birds, you're giving the double birds. I mean, whatever. But when you know, there's probably kids in the stands, kids watching the game that are role model that think look up to Brian Branch as like oh, he went to Alabama. I love Alabama. No matter where he goes in the NFL, I'm going to be his fan. Or maybe they're a huge Lions fan and they like Brian Branch because he's on the Lions. And the impression you get by walking off after getting in trouble and giving the double middle fingers, I mean, that's that's kind of iffy as well. But you know, I think if he went back and he would probably take back that moment, I would hope, but maybe not.
Yeah. Hopefully he would take it back. I mean, sometimes especially in a sporting event, big games like that, the emotions, you get all caught up in the emotions, and if someone says something to you, you know what,
Yeah.
you may respond with a gesture here or there, and you know, I mean, it's a tough thing because, like, if you play any sports, I mean, if y- you get caught up in all the emotion that's going on, all the adrenaline that's flowing through you.
Right. No, I'm not like trying to like and then after the fact that they went out and they made T-shirts of the picture of him. I'm sure you're aware of that. They made T-shirts for the secondary where they had the
Yeah,
picture of him with the double birds. But I mean, I don't know. But hopefully he can learn from his. Hopefully any player in the NFL that can learn from their mistakes and move on. Because I mean, I think eventually here the NFL is gonna start gonna have to crack down because I mean every year people get bigger, faster, stronger. I mean the impact of these hits, and you look down the road, you know, if you're retired 15, 20 years and you're having these health issues, you would think that the NFL would be held responsible for the take care of them. You know, not just be like, oh,
yeah,
here is $5 million. Thank you. You know, but anyway, we'll get quit talking about that because I could go on and on about that. But it's just I think the NFL needs to do a better job protecting players as far as their health, as far as helmet to helmet, and the waist down hip drop tackle because those are dangerous as well. And that too, the hip drop tackle that they were banning, you see it every game and it's not even called. Like you said, they need to have more consistency on their calls because that play like the hip drop, if you get your leg caught behind you that could ruin your career in a heartbeat.
yeah, yeah. I was gonna say that they were supposed to be one of their new rules that they were going to enforce, but you don't. I barely see any penalties for it. It's
You know, I'd have thought about that too, Brian. It's like, okay, so maybe the refs didn't see it, but there's got to be somehow that if it's seen and not called, it should have the ability to stop the game and call it. I
yeah,
mean, it's just think if you know you got Jamison Williams out there, he's your best receiver, and he gets a cheap shot. I mean, and no one sees it. That's gonna kind of leave a sour taste in your mouth. You know what I mean? And, I mean, at least if something was called against a player, at least it'd make you feel a little bit better. I know I'd be upset if that happened to a Packer player or any player because you see it happening all the time, and it's not being called. And it's like, oh, it's going to be a big point of emphasis. They don't. There's no consistency in any of their calling, and I think that's hurting the game big time.
yeah, yeah. I was going to say the officiating because I mean you're not quite sure what, what you're going to get from these officials game to game. I mean. I personally, I'd like to see them go and get maybe some former players and have them go to officiating school. I have them start off at in college, junior leagues, and have them work their way up to become officials in the NFL. And you know, you have professional officials that this is all they do is ref these games.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea because a lot of these refs are like they're like lawyers or whatever they are, and I
Yeah,
know Ed Hockley, he was a lawyer, correct, out of Arizona.
yeah, yeah.
So I mean,
He was. I mean, they've all got some sort of job. You know, this is just like their part time job, I guess.
I think I'd rather
It,
have a part time refing job than a full time normal job.
yeah,
Who do the Lions play on Sunday? Oh, yeah. Who do they play on
Jacksonville,
Sunday? Jacksonville.
Jacksonville. Yeah,
What are your thoughts on that?
that's a game that they should win. I don't know what's going on with Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence. He, I don't. I saw him when he played at Clemson, and he was really good. But I mean, in college, you can get away with making certain plays that you can in the NFL. I don't know if it's he's on his second or third coach, I think, with Peterson now.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's taking him time with the different coaches to adjust to just the play calling,
Yeah,
but he should
it's
be
weird too how
better.
he got see how he got that big contract and he's not really living up to his contract. You know, kind of same thing with C.J. Stroud. Like they were comparing, when the season started, everyone was inking or putting a target on the Texans and Packers game because it's Jordan Love and C.J. Stroud, and everyone thought that C.J. Stroud was better than Jordan Love, and we held him to like 86 yards of offense, passing that game. So I don't know, like C.J. Stroud, he has good games and bad games. I guess every quarterback does, but it's just kind of ironic how they get these big contract extensions and then they kind of disappear at certain points in the season.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, every quarterback, you're going to have good games, and you're going to have that one game that you just want to erase. But the good quarterbacks, they find a way to be pretty consistent. It might be like 4 or 5 good games and one bad game that they have. It's not one good game, one bad game.
Yeah, I just hope that they pick, like Love has, doesn't have too many more bad games this year because I mean, this time last year they were 3-6. Now this time, well, then this year they're 6-3. So I think the bye came at a perfect time. They realize that they can be, you know, shut down, and I think they have some things to work on, and I think they're going to come back out on fire. I think it's going to be just like last year. I think Minnesota and Detroit beat Green Bay at Lambeau, and then we went to Minnesota and we went to Detroit, and we won those games. I think it's going to be the same thing as last year. I think we're going to, I don't know why. Like Lambeau doesn't seem like much of a home field advantage anymore for the Packers. Like any team can come in and just any given day just beat them. I mean, what are your thoughts on the home field advantage not being really a home field advantage in the NFL anymore? Is it because there's more fans? Do you think traveling to the away games? What do you think it is?
I think you're getting more fans traveling to the away games to make the road teams feel more at home. And
Yeah,
it,
I, I,
it,
I
it,
I agree with you. It's Packers fans. They've always traveled good. Packers fans and Wisconsin Badger fans for football, they travel everywhere. I can remember back when Wisconsin was in the Rose Bowl in the late '90s, and they show an aerial of Pasadena, and it's nothing but red and white.
it,
But yeah, Packer fans, even this year at SoFi Stadium against the Rams, it was more Packer fans than Rams fans there because you could clearly hear during the game the "Go Pack Go" chant. So that was kind of funny. But um, who do you think Detroit's biggest celebrity fan is? You think it's Eminem?
yeah, it's probably Eminem right now. He seems to be out there for them at most of their games.
Okay. What are your thoughts on Kirby Joseph?
I like him. He's a good player. He's starting to shove receivers down back there. Him and Carlton Davis. Our secondary is probably better than what most people think it is actually right now.
Yeah, he's isn't he tied in the league with McKinney for interceptions?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. If you had to pick between Amon Ra, whatever his name is, Sam Brown and Jamison Williams, who would you pick?
Well, that's a tough one. Right now, I'll go with St. Brown because he's a more proven receiver.
Sure. Yeah, he. I don't know. I don't know if he did it on purpose or not, but his shirt that he wore to the game, where Green Bay he had it as one word. It's I don't know. Green Bay's two words. I just didn't know if you didn't know that or.
Yeah.
um, I'm just trying to think. How do you think, after seeing what you've seen so far this year in the NFC, who do you think is going to be the top three teams coming out of the NFC in the playoffs?
Detroit's number one. I'll say Green Bay's probably number two. They seem to be like the two most consistent teams right now. And then
Okay.
I'll say Philadelphia number three.
Yeah. Again, I think that Packer game, the first game of the year. I mean, I'm not one to throw in excuses or anything, but like the field wasn't that great in Brazil. I mean, it is what it is. It's people playing snow, people playing mud, people playing rain, people play whatever. I just I think they could have done a better job on that field. And two, I think that hit on Jordan Love was dirty. That knocked him off because you had one guy high and you had one guy low, and the one guy low was rolling his leg, and that's illegal as well. But uh, I don't know if you remember, but I had like so many Philadelphia fans coming at me in my inbox for that because I posted that picture and said last time I checked this was a dirty play, and this multiple people like this talking trash to me and that was pretty funny. It lasted about a week and a half. They were coming after me. Then they all went away. So that was kind of
Yeah.
cool. Um, so far, who would you pick for MVP in the season in all the NFL?
I'll go with Derek Henry.
Okay, I'd go between Henry or Patrick Mahomes. I just Henry, if we're going to a new team, new offense, to having this good of rushing yards and the impact that he makes for the Ravens, he makes the offense two dimensional because they have a threat at receiver and wide and running back. Mahomes, simply for the fact that you know they're undefeated, he
Yeah.
finds ways. He finds ways to make the Chiefs win. We all hate to see it, but it happens every week, and that's being a valuable player when that's. So I think it's going to come down to Henry and Mahomes, but you got to throw in Lamar Jackson. You got to throw in um, Josh Allen, I think, as well. It's going to be Jared Goff. I mean, it's going to be a tight race. I think it's going to go up to the last week of the season to have a clear standout. Offensive player of the year, I want to go with probably Derrick Henry.
Yeah. He's having a monster year for Baltimore. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you go from a run heavy team in Tennessee to kind of a you don't know. Lamar drops back and he runs, he passes, he hands it off, but he's never had as good as a running back in the backfield as Derrick Henry. Huh? Yeah. Um, and he does definitely make an impact for the Ravens. I, I, I'm just going to stick with Derrick Henry for offensive player of the year because I just, I don't know, I'm not on the Mahomes train.
yeah, yeah.
I get so
I'll
sick of
say,
having Mahomes shoved down my throat week in and week out. I'm just over it.
yeah. I mean, and offensively, he's not having as good of a year as he normally does. But
Yeah, that and Derrick Henry, like when he's in the backfield, there's a 50% chance they're going to hand the ball off to him. And even when they know that he's running the ball, they can't stop him. For a guy of that size and how fast and how agile he is, that's crazy. I can think the one game that I can think back to where he got stopped was that December game against the Packers at Lambeau. It was the snowy game. That was the breakout game for AJ Dillon. He had, I think, Jones was out with an injury. I think that's when COVID was running through the NFL and through everywhere, and they held him to like 3.8 yards per carry. He had like 90 something yards rushing, and we won the game. But I mean, a guy that huge, you could know they're running the ball and you can't stop them. You know, so I think I'd definitely put him at offensive player of the year. Who would you put at defensive player of the year so far?
Well, oh, this is a tough one because I would have said Aiden Hutchinson up until he got injured against Dallas because he was having a monster year, leading the league in sacks.
I mean, you got Kirby Joseph, you got Brian Branch.
And yeah, Carlton Davis. I mean, they're all having. I'll go with Carlton Davis.
Okay, I'm gonna go with Xavier McKinney. I just I still to this day, every time I talk about it and I think about it, I don't know. I don't even know if the Giants knew what they're doing when they let him go. When they didn't try to retain him. I I mean, I'm sure I talked with you about it before the season, but if I'm sure you've heard me talk about it too, the guy's 24 years old. How do you let somebody at 24 years old with that much talent walk away from your team and not make an attempt to try to save your defense? Like, I mean, they just let him go, and they gave Daniel Jones all that money, and now there's talk of them benching Daniel Jones. So I hope the Giants fans are happy with their team's front office, and I hope McKinney's a Packer for the rest of his playing days. That's definitely, for me, it has like a Charles Woodson type vibe. That how much of an impact he's making, and I mean, I can't not throw Reggie White in there too, because those are two huge additions to the Packers that eventually led to Lombardi trophies in Green Bay. So I won't put him up quite that high, but it has that type of vibe so far. Um, Rookie of the year. Up until last night, I was gonna say Jaden Daniels, and I still would say him because he played against a good team last night. Um,
Yeah,
he's got a lot to learn, and I just think right now he's still trying to figure out some parts of the game. Like, he needs to learn, like, when there's pressure on from behind, he needs to be aware of his surroundings, and he needs to learn when to get rid of the ball before taking like a 5-yard loss.
yeah, yeah. That's one thing with like rookie QBs is that there's always that learning curve, which is why the success that Stroud had last year kind of surprises me. Being working and leading his team to the playoffs, and then he's got the regression this year. It's kind of like you'd figure first year would be kind of tough, and second year he'd be somewhat bit better after having played a year of professional football.
Yeah. Speaking of regression, what are your thoughts on the Dallas Cowboys? I know it's kind of like a random question out of the blue, but
No,
I
no,
mean, I think it's. I mean, I think it's kind of comical how Jerry Jones is like the old man that doesn't want to admit that he's wrong. He has all this money and he can't be wrong. And whatever he does, whatever he decides is the best idea for the team, even if it's not the best idea. He thinks it's the best idea, so it's the best idea. And all of a sudden, like the whole world around like Dallas is like imploding, and like he thinks everything is okay.
Yeah, Jerry needs to step down as being the GM and owner of the team, and hire like someone else to be GM, because I don't know what he's thinking with some of the moves he's making. I mean, Derrick Henry was a free agent, and I don't think he even made an offer to him or anything. I mean, and he went back and re-signed Zeke, and
Well, that I heard that he didn't even he didn't even attempt to get Derrick Henry, and Derrick Henry has a house in Texas, like close to Dallas. So I don't get. Could you imagine that backfield? Could you imagine that offense?
I mean that offense would be good if they went out and got Henry, and then you have Dak, and you have CD Lamb.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's kind of sums up the year for the Cowboys, and they signed CD Lamb to a big contract. They signed Dak Prescott to a big contract, and their season's just going. It's just going straight down.
Yeah,
As a Packer fan, it's kind of fun to see it, but it makes it even better when you see Mike McCarthy at the helms of the Cowboys.
yeah.
I don't think he'll have a job come end of the year. I'm surprised he's made it this far having a job there. To be honest with you,
So am I. I honestly thought after they lost to Green Bay in the playoffs last year, so they were probably gonna find a new coach and try and shake some things up within the organization, and Jerry just decides, well, we'll just keep everything the same.
yeah, that's comical to me. I mean, it's just like you said. It's an old man. He's stubborn, and he wants to think that he's making the right decisions, but all of America knows that he's not. So I think his son's going to be in charge of the team when he's done. And if he's anything like his dad, they're going to be the same for years to come. You know. Let's go back to the season awards. Comeback Player of the Year. I'm going to go with Kirk Cousins.
That's a good one. I mean, he's having a really good year with the Falcons. I mean, I'll go with Sam Darnold.
Yeah, that.
I I I I picked Minnesota to finish last in the division. They went and drafted McCarthy, and being a rookie QB, and then when they said he was out for the year, and I heard that Sam Darnold was their backup, I was like, I don't know if it's the Jets and their coaches or what, but like Sam Darnold is a completely different player with the Vikings.
Yeah, yeah, we found that. Well, and the thing with the Packers too is, that game should have been a lot closer than what it was throughout the whole game. It shouldn't take a professional team one whole half to make adjustments. You should be able to make adjustments on the fly. And the Packers, if they would have played that whole game like they played the second half of that game, it would have been a lot. We would have trounced them, but it didn't happen. You know, like we held them. Like they scored like 29, 28 points in the first half against us. Second half, we held them to 3 points. So I mean, we figured it out, but we just couldn't. If we had like 5 more minutes in that game, we would have won. But Darnold, he played good. I mean, hats off to the Vikings for that. I didn't expect that to come out of that game. To be honest, like that game, he kind of had the vibe right away that this is going to be a long game for Packer fans.
Yeah.
um, what are your thoughts on Devontae going to the Jets?
I wasn't surprised that much. I don't think he was happy in or in Las Vegas with everything that's been going on. I mean, he was barely getting targeted by his quarterbacks or anything, and I I I think he probably said he wanted to go back and play with Aaron Rodgers just because he knew what he was getting in a quarterback.
Do you think he has a Taco Bell in his house in New York?
I don't think so, but
Because from the looks of it, he has one in his house in Vegas.
yeah.
No, I just
No,
I think him wanting out of Vegas. I think it kind of in a way. I mean, I get it, but it kind of makes him look like he can't deal with tough situations. He wants to go where it's like kind of like handed to him in a way. And I hate talking bad about any former Packer players because they did so much. I mean, especially like Aaron and Devontae and even like Randall Cobb and Aaron Jones to the Vikings. But you kind of look back and it's like, damn, was that how they were in Green Bay too? You know what I'm saying? Like, was
yeah,
there a whole other side of them that we didn't see that now is finally coming to fruition that this is how they were? Maybe this is why they're no longer a Packer.
yeah. That's the thing. Like sometimes when you have players on your teams, you sometimes don't see what they're like outside of the stadium.
Yeah, I mean, I got Devontae in his first year, and I mean, they had Derek Carr, and then Carr went to the Saints, and like Devontae just kind of he didn't have that quarterback getting him the ball like he was used to. So I think that's what kind of changed for him. And I think once Carr was gone, he made it pretty clear he didn't want to be there anymore, and he went to wherever Aaron was. And even like Aaron, it's just funny how Aaron like all of a sudden like the Jets aren't doing good, or they're not living up to the expectations, and they got Robert Saleh and all. Robert, I hated Robert Saleh when he played the Niners because he was their defensive coordinator, and I just the defense was so good against the Packers in San Francisco, and all of a sudden he gets fired, and like the next week or two after that, he's in Green Bay consulting the Packers. Like he's working with the Packers offense to learn how to read what the opposing defense is doing. That's his role in Green Bay. He's actually working with the offense to recognize defensive situations. I don't know if you're aware of that or not, but he's an advisor for the Packers now.
Oh, okay. I saw like after like a week or two after he got fired, he was in Green Bay, but I don't think anything ever came out, or if it did, I missed it that the Packers had hired him in any sort of capacity.
Yeah, he's good friends with Matt LaFleur.
Oh, okay.
Like Matt LaFleur was the best man in his wedding, and then he knows Halfley, our defensive coordinator, because Halfley was on the staff at San Francisco when Saleh was D coordinator, and then I think he knows our linebackers coach as well. So there's a connection in Green Bay with Robert Saleh. So thought that was kind of funny how like everyone's blaming the coaches in New York, but I mean, are they too? They don't want to say blame Aaron Rodgers or
Yeah.
blame somebody else. The coach killer that they call him. Hey, I'm just glad that we're not dealing with that situation in Green Bay because I was at my wits' end 2 summers ago with him. Coach of the year.
I'm gonna go with Jim Harbaugh in San Diego.
That's a good pick. I never thought about that. Although I don't like Harbaugh because of the shenanigans at Michigan. That 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 spy.
Yeah.
Um, I'm gonna stay home with this one and say Matt Lafleur. I think he's built a good, young, solid team. No, they're still on a learning curve, and I think once they all get it, and they're going to be a dangerous team for a few years to come. So,
Yeah.
and back to that Harbaugh thing. So, I still don't get how. I'm sure you've heard more about it in Michigan than I have here, but how was that guy on their staff able to get in the team's apparel and get a sideline pass to be on the field for that game? He was in, I forget, was it like Central Michigan, or he was like in some other schools shirt. He looked like an assistant coach. He had a hat. He had the mic thing on, and he had play. I mean, how is that possible?
I,
How
that,
how
that,
did he
that,
how did he get clearance to the field?
One thing I don't I'm not sure, like I don't know if he showed some fake identification, because I mean, you would figure they be more security there around the team to make sure that the right people are on the field at the time. It's
I and I'm surprised that Michigan never didn't get their championship revoked because of that. There has been teams that have done worse than that got their national championships taken away. But
yeah.
maybe it's going to happen in years to come. Who knows? Who know? That's the last I heard of it. Was I kind of just forgot about it really until you brought up Jim Harbaugh, and I'm like, oh, that's right. He was a part of that scandal in Michigan.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like the NCAA really doesn't seem like they're too concerned about it. I mean, for them, the whole biggest thing was just hit the guy that was going to the games and stealing the signals. And like the whole ironic thing about that is like the NCAA kind of says you can steal other teams' signals, and it's fine if you do it by watching video and stuff. You just can't have someone go to games. I mean, it's
Yeah, I think that's the big reason why Harbaugh left. He bolted to the Chargers because he knew it was coming, and I think
yeah.
it'd make him look bad if he would have stayed too. So, but I doubt any of that's going on in Michigan now because of what their record is. I don't even know what is their record. Like
I think they're 5-4,
five
maybe
and four. I
five
was
and
going to say
five.
5-4. Yeah.
Yeah, 5-4, 5-5. Like,
But yeah, it's didn't they lose a top commit quarterback? Didn't he decommit?
yeah. I mean, the quarterbacks they have right now are not very good.
Yeah.
They have one guy can't even throw like a 5 yard pass, and every
What?
time he comes into the yeah, every time he comes into the game, it's always some sort of running play with him. Like if you watch a game, Alex Orgy, like
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yep.
yeah, he it's all he does is runs the ball.
Yeah, maybe they're saving his arm to show it on game days when he's actually going to throw the ball. Maybe he can throw the ball, but maybe it's not. They don't want to put the video up there for other teams to see. Kind of like Malik Willis when he came to the Packers. He had a few passes, and the few passes that he had were good targets. So and that's another thing that I don't get is when we played. Was it the Colts? I think we played the Colts and the Titans with Malik Willis, and Rogers, Jordan Love goes down, and you know within that week we make the trade for Malik Willis, right? So there's not much tape on him. You know, he's a mobile quarterback. He had a good arm in college. So if you're an opposing defense, wouldn't you think like 80% of the plays are going to be like some type of run, either the running back or the quarterback, with him
Yeah.
being a mobile quarterback? And they team still couldn't stop it. They couldn't stop the run. We had a what was it 164 yards rushing in the first quarter against the Indianapolis Colts. That's crazy. And like they could have went up to the line and been like, "Hey, we're running the ball. We're going to run the ball right over here," and no one could have stopped them. You know, that's another reason why I put LaFleur at Coach of the Year is because the way he schemed for Malik Willis to come in and he put a plan together that was very successful. I think that's when you know you have a good coach.
Yeah.
For sure. We're gonna wrap it up here. One last question before we go though, Brian. Who is your pick from the NFC and the AFC in this year's Super Bowl?
I'm going with Lions and Chiefs.
Okay, and I know who you want to win, so I'm not going to ask that question. Obviously want the Lions, and I'm not going to lie. Like last year, when the Packers were out of it, I was cheering for the Lions against the Niners. I'm sure I told you that before too.
Yeah.
I was cheering for them. Just it'd be like a feel good story, you know. Um, since what was that stat? Since like 1994, 93, the Packers have like 15 or 16 division championships. And I think the Lions got theirs last year, right? 23?
Yeah.
23. So that was their first one in 30 years.
Yes.
Well, that I thought that was cool. I just like, you know, if I'm gonna, I mean, I hate to cheer for any team in the division, other than the Packers, but when there's something like that, it's a feel good story for the Lions because, I mean, just, I don't know. Anyways, I just think it's cool. It's like a feel good story. You like to see feel good stories in sports. Sometimes the underdog becoming like the favorite is a good story. Um, but I'm gonna go with Green Bay and KC.
Okay.
I'm just gonna go on a limb. I'm gonna go with Green Bay. I think they have all the guys to do it. I think if they're all clicking at the same time, and depending on how the seeding goes in the playoffs, hopefully like the top seeds. Packers. I don't like the Packers going into the playoffs as like the number one seed because they always seem to when they lose, it seems to hurt a little bit more versus being the underdog like last year, being a wild card team and going in. They beat Dallas. That's cool. Then the heartbreak is less heartbreaking when they are an underdog versus when they're like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, they went in, you know, 14
Yeah.
and 2 or wherever it was, and they lost in the first round. So, um, I'm gonna go Green Bay, KC. I'm gonna say Green Bay is gonna beat the Chiefs. So that's my guess. I'm gonna be wrong, but whatever, right?
Right.
But if it happens, then I can say, "Hey, I told you so."
Yeah.
But well, listen, I want to thank you for your hour of your night here on Friday night. Appreciate you being on. I will be in touch with you to be on in the future, and probably late January, early February, if that works for you. I'll get a hold of you and we'll get a date picked and look forward to having you back on again. And you want to let people know where they can find you?
Yeah. I'm on Twitter slash X and it's at Dudek.Brian.
Okay, and you can find me at Cheese Talk _pod on Twitter. Cheese is spelled with a Z. Um, on YouTube, you can find me. Well, we're streaming on YouTube right now, but you can find me at Cheese Talk Podcast, all one word. Cheese is spelled with a Z. I also want to give a shout out and a thank you to Ohana Packers Network or OPE for giving me the chance to broadcast podcast under their umbrella, Ohana Packers Edition. You can find them at Ohana underscore Packers. That's OHANA underscore Packers. Give them a follow, say hi, and any final things to say, Brian, before we get out of here?
Thanks for having me on, Brian. It was a pleasure talking football with you tonight.
Absolutely. Had a lot of fun. And I'll say go Pack go. And what's your guys is staying over in Detroit there?
Let's go Lions.
One Pride, right? Isn't
Yeah,
it
one
One Pride?
pride. Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
one pride. Let's go
All
Lions.
right.
One pride.
All right. Well, thanks, Brian. Appreciate it. Have a good night. Who's gonna win, Tyson or Jake Paul?
Tyson.
I want Tyson to beat his ass so bad.
I think that the majority of people that I see, everyone wants Tyson to just beat him.
That we can all hope, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, again, Brian, thank you. I appreciate it, and we'll be in touch to get something else set up. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Brian.
Yep. Have a good night.
You too.